Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's St. Simon and Jude Youth Ministry podcast. My name is David Mims,
I'm Jack Wise.
and today Jack and I decided that we were going to talk about something that was very prominent in our lives a few years ago and is very, very prominent in our ministries uh, and is even more prominent in each one of y'all's lives. And that is the relationship between youth and their parents. So whenever we say youth during this podcast, we're talking about high schoolers or junior high age level is really what we're targeting. But a lot of these things can be used. A lot of things we're going to be talking about can be used for even younger and older age groups. So Jack, my first question for you is, what is your relationship with your parents like now?
Oh man, if we had group therapy, I could answer this fully. But no, in all seriousness, it's really good. If anything, right? It's we clash head. Mom and I clash heads sometimes, right? And
Hmm.
so it's because we're both extremely similar and strong-willed. But close. They have been a blessing in my life for all throughout the years. They done everything like they could to set me on the right track.
Hmm.
And when I wasn't on the right track, they let me know. And it's just like, um, yeah, it's really great. We're super close. I know we're a small family of four, so we're forced to be close. And so
Absolutely.
I
Okay,
really have nothing bad to say.
so was there ever a point in your relationship with your parents where you would say you had a bad relationship with them? Because what I'm hearing is that you have a good relationship with your parents right now. Was there ever a point that you had a bad relationship with them? And tell us maybe a story or something from that time period.
I think there's 2 points in my life that really kind of I had a bad relationship. Not bad, but more of like we didn't see eye to eye on level, which causes some strains as you the listeners know with your teenage kids or middle junior high youth that we don't see eye to eye with your kids on things, and no matter what's going on, it's going to strain a little bit. But the first big one was deciding where to go to college.
Okay.
And so basically my senior year I started the junior year I started looking at college, and I didn't really take it seriously because it was like I'm finally like semi popular. High school is going good. I didn't want it to really end, and senior year is like flying so close. So I just made varsity lacrosse, and I was like playing well enough where this coach gave me an inclination like, hey, you're good enough to go play on the East Coast and play lacrosse. I'm like, oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to go do that? And so like I set my like searches to these crazy parameters of like, okay, it's got to be small like my high school, and at the time I wanted to be a nursing student, have a nursing student, and it's have like division 2 or 3 lacrosse because I set in my mind why I didn't want to play collegiate club. Um, and then it's got to be on the East Coast away from California, like a million miles away from California, because I just want to get out of there.
Yeah.
And my mom's just like, so like the school that came back was this little school called Regis College in Boston, and honestly, it wasn't the right fit for me. And so like, but I the coach liked me enough. Like I got a scholarship. They had one of the best nursing programs in the Northeast that I could make my way into, hopefully by sophomore year, because I didn't have the science prerequisites.
Which
And
can
my
I just
mom's
say,
like,
he says one of the best because I went to the school with the best. I didn't know if you
oh,
knew that.
yeah,
Franciscan
I did
University
not know
has
that.
has I think one of the top two nursing programs in the United States.
Oh man, why didn't you become a nurse?
I don't think people want me cutting up anybody or taking care of anybody in that way.
Yeah, it's the reason why we're youth ministers. Math and science was not our strong suits.
Amen.
So I
Sorry,
I
but please
get
continue your
there.
story. Please continue your story.
So came time for me to make my decisions like a senior year of high school, and like things are going great. Like like I'm like hitting the highest GPA, and like all these other schools stuff for academic rise like, hey, come here, like
Hmm.
come here, like just on a whole nother level of academics. What the school offers a whole different level, but no, it's like, nope, like I'm playing lacrosse. I got it all set out. Like it's a small enough school, like X, Y, and Z. And I get there, and my mom was so mad at me. Just like absolutely, just like my mom took me on my recruiting trip to there, so I
Uh-huh.
was bouncing around. Like I went on a recruiting trip to Catholic University of America in DC, which has a beautiful cathedral.
Hmm.
And then I went to a recruiting trip on another school called Immaculata in Pennsylvania. So
Oh yeah.
all these little different schools, and like loved Catholic because like that's where the Basilica National Basilica is, like strong Catholic program in DC. Loved it. And then I didn't even look at my brother's school, Loyola Maryland, which I ended up graduating from. So props to you, mom. But you get there, and it's just like it's a small school in the middle of nowhere, like outskirts of Boston. And I get there, and my mom just gives me this death glare of like, really? And I was like, at this time, was like, at this time, like right when I stepped on like campus for like, the thing, I was like, maybe this is the best decision, but I can't like give into her. So like, I ended up signing with them. I played, went there, like move in, like, and the moment I get the first week of school, I was like, darn, she was right.
Yeah.
But I was like, I fought her all the way here too. That I didn't want to hear like I told you so.
Oh,
It's like
absolutely.
Italian mothers are very passionate and they like to celebrate the victories in some ways. And so like I grit and bear it, and I stayed there in a year and a half, and it was just miserable. Like I got hurt a lot. I got like tore my knee and concussion my freshman year. It's one of those schools that everybody from that school either lives in Boston or Massachusetts, so they go home for
Hmm.
the weekend. So like being from California, I might as well have been from Vietnam.
Yeah.
I was there. I was there for a while. Like I couldn't go home for like Easter because we had spring games, and so I was there, and then finally like it just take a toll. Like I got real unhappy. I was like, and she's like arguing, like she goes like, I know you're unhappy, I see you're unhappy, you can tell me you're unhappy and I can help you get out of here. And I was like, no, I'm fine, these are my friends, I'm doing great in school, mom. And like
But
this went on
ma'am.
all, yeah, but this went like literally like the coach who surprisingly moved to Texas, who I'm so close with, was like, yeah, he's not happy. And my mom was like, oh, I know, but this is on him now. Like so
Absolutely.
like I got to my sophomore year, and I got finally like my end of freshman year, I had the chance to leave and go to Loyal Chicago. And at that time, like I said no, and I went back for my fall semester there. And at that point, I had enough, and I was like, okay, I'm transferring. And the look of my mom's face was just like he just finished a marathon. Like God blessed me with some clarity, and I ended up transferring without look. This is another funny story, but like when it came to apply to different schools, I didn't really transfer. I didn't really look too much due diligence there because I was just like, I picked one bad school and it was all right. So like, I heard great things about Loyola Maryland. Like I'm not gonna look at other schools. Like I have the GPA, I can get into the honors college, so I transfer there. And so like I kind of like jumped there mid year. So to all my parents who have a kid who will transfer college, because 50% of you guys will transfer college, never allow your kids to transfer mid year. So so I transferred to Loyola Maryland. I ended up graduating. I had a great time there. A lot of learning curve came and good came out of like this whole experience. But like the time where like my to summarize the story is like my mom saw there was like something better than me than just going to play lacrosse
Hmm.
and getting a college degree. She's like, there's so much more than this. Like academically wise, what you want at the university, like because like all parents and all our listeners, they want the best for the kids or like
Absolutely.
for their future because they want the best. And she like saw that like this wasn't the best option, and like of like it's just we just went back and forth, and I was of course I was like 8, so like
Oh
like
yeah.
it had basically checked all of Bacon's boxes, so I wasn't listening. But like
Hmm.
we really like it was probably like a constant argument my senior year, a second half in summer, and like the freshman year of college, where we're just butted heads. We're just
Absolutely.
like it's like it like where my dad just like you guys can work this out. Like my dad and I had conversations where like we like I know you're happy, your mom knows I'm unhappy. This isn't about like who wins in the situation. We just want you happy. And then like finally took me to the point where like I was just miserable that I like I went and transferred and like I never really got the I told you so. It was
Yeah.
she was like clicked. She's like, okay, what do you need me to help you with? And so
Absolutely.
like that is something I never really like thanked my mom enough. It wasn't just like after like a year and a half of just arguing buddy heads and getting a little heated a lot of times. It wasn't like she wasn't vindictive or boastful about it, like saying like I was right and you're wrong and you like wasted a year and a half. It's like, okay, like what do you need me to help you? Like what do you need help with? And like I think that went from like a really bad point in our relationship where we're constantly fighting to like boom, like
Yeah, like she
like
loves me that
that's
much that
really
she doesn't
much.
need to say I told you so. Absolutely. I think for me, so I have a really awesome relationship with my mom. For those of you that don't know, my dad passed away. I believe it was about five. Yeah, it was 5 years ago. This past January. Um, so my dad and I, right before he passed away, had a very good relationship. I was away at college when he passed away, but him and I would do this thing where every Father's Day and every Christmas and every one of his birthdays, the gift that I'd give him, because my dad was one of those guys who had every toy. Like if he wanted something, he just bought it. Um, so what I would do is I'd buy him a gift card to a restaurant, and him and I would go out for meals together, and I'd say that it was me buying. So I'd be buying the meal. Um, so like that, once we started doing that, my dad and I actually really started seeing eye to eye because we started really forming the a relationship, and it was really began to see each other as friends. Um, but I'll tell you, in junior high and high school, my dad and I, um, we didn't see eye to eye at all. Um, my dad was always the enforcer. I say that with air quotes. He was always the parent who was the bad cop. Um, you know, uh, I the one story that always comes to my mind is my dad and I had been in a really tense situation for a few weeks at this point. Um, you know, I'm I'm having those shower arguments. You know, the ones that you have in your head where you win, but they never go that way whenever you actually have them. Because
100%. Yep.
I like after a few weeks of having those shower arguments, and just getting angrier and angrier. I remember I was sitting and I was watching a TV show. Um, my dad came out and was like, "Hey, can you go feed the animals?" And that was one of my chores around the house. So I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like I'll go feed the animals. Can I finish watching this show? I've got like 5 minutes left." And he goes, "No, go do it right now." And I was
Ooh.
like, and so I turn off the TV, get up, and I kind of storm out of the house because you know I'm like, what the heck? Like I can't sit here for 5 more minutes while I finish this show. Um, and like I said, this sounds like a really small thing, and it was a really small thing. But it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me, because I came back inside, went upstairs, and I used to have a nice computer chair um, upstairs in my computer room in my office. He says with air quotes.
I'm
Uh,
like, wow, what were you doing at that age?
uh,
That one
is
sucked.
is really just where I had a computer and a chair, and like I had a couch up there. It was a really nice little place. Um, but I go upstairs and I go and I do a full jump swing at the chair because I'm so pissed. Um, so here's a little piece of advice that I give you. Um, Listeners, this is free advice. Just please take it in. If you're gonna hit a computer chair, hit the front of it, not the back of it.
Ooh.
Because the front of it is cushioned. The back of it
Oh,
is a metal plate.
yikes.
So I like full force jump punched this the back of this metal chair, the back of this chair, broke 3 bones in my hand. Um, like that's the where my dad and I's relationship was at that point. Um, so it's fair to say him and I didn't really see eye to eye. Um, I always felt a little bit like he would tell me one thing and then do something else himself, um, which as parents sometimes you have to do that. Um, Believe me, I know that more so now than I did a year ago, and I'm only a few months in. Um, but like, to me, that was one of the big tension building points for me and my dad. Um, so yeah, I mean like I said, my relationship with my dad whenever I got into college, um, where he was no longer had to be the authority figure over me, and he became more of a friend figure to me. Him and I became super close. Um, and me and my mom and I in college, my senior year, we called at least once a week. Um, my mom is does something very similar to what we do. She runs a retreat center down in Houston. So I like her and I will call and just throw talk ideas off of each other. Um, if I get stumped on something, I'll be like, "Hey, mom!" Like I'll just call her up so that we can go over it. We sit and we have theological conversations all the time. Like my mom and I have always been super close. Uh, so like my mom and I's relationship has always been really good, but it was definitely me and my dad who butted heads a lot, specifically during my high school years. So Jack, we've talked about kind of these points in our own relationships with our parents where they were both good and when they were bad. So, what makes those relationships good? What makes those healthy relationships between parents and youth in your experience?
I think it comes down for a couple things, right? I think to summarize on like first, like take interest in their interests or lives, right? So whatever your son or daughter likes to do, and no matter how like you may not understand it, take interest in their interests. Like
Hmm.
I experienced a dad who played football at University of Alabama, whose son loves ballet, and the dad was the loudest dad on at the performance, just
Absolutely.
absolutely just like loving it. The second is like choose your battles with your kid. Like not gonna like a lot of things like to nitpick your kid over and over again is really gonna make them rebel. I know that's what my mom did with me a lot
Hmm.
because like he emphasized like always like be the best version of yourself, and that's like where like I push back a little bit. So like this is something my dad mastered at a young age. Is like if he really want me to do something, he would choose his battles.
Hmm.
That's good. Like also like here's the thing like another thing emphasize the importance of the little things. So like I know like your kid's like, oh, I'm just like if your kid doesn't get the like little things like with your relationship, he's not gonna get the big things and not gonna feel comfortable coming to yourself with little things.
Absolutely.
So like the way like my mom did this, and then it's kind of different between my mom and my dad. Like my mom used to always on Sundays go to the grocery store and go get a cup of coffee at her favorite restaurant, coffee shop, and she would always like it's like, hey, do you want to come with me?
Hmm.
And like that was our bonding time where like, we could like emphasize the importance of like any time and the little things where like she can just like so like how's life? Like, what do
Yeah.
you need to talk to me about? And like point where it carries on today, like where like I still have a cup of coffee with my mom. and like that's like our time to talk.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
I and then this is what the last 2 points are very like what I think are the most important, just like for raising me as a strong will like kid was be specific with your boundaries.
Hmm.
So like if like my parents were a master, like if you're not like bedtime is at like 10 p.m., not 10:01, not 10:05, not blah blah blah. So I knew like I had to be home by 10 p.m. or like there's consequences.
Yeah.
And so like I knew what the expectations of for me as like being a kid. Like it was fine. Like I knew like I what was asked of me and I was like able to do it. And so that's like a great thing just for like so your kid doesn't feel like oh you're going against me or like oh like this is so unfair. It's like no, my parents told me like listen like nothing good happens after like 10 p.m. when you're under the age 18.
Yeah.
Nothing good will happen to you. So
And no
like
matter
we
what age
want you
you are, nothing good happens after midnight.
oh yeah 100%. You'll never find me out after midnight. So like that was like something like okay so like that's like things where like it minimized a lot of like resentment and fighting. It's like, okay, I know what they expect of me. Like I know there's boundaries, like how they act, and like I know like what I expect of my parents to. And then the last one is what God, I think my mom let me master the hard way, and my dad is let them fail. You gotta let your
Mm,
kid fail.
mm,
Let them
yeah.
fail. Because like there's more like I could sit here in a whole podcast and talk about like all the things I failed at where my mom could have stepped in, right? But like when I didn't do my homework, and like my teacher's like, oh, we can just let him to do it. My mom was like, no, like he didn't do his homework, fail him, give him an
Yep.
F. He'll learn his lesson. And like, at the time was like, that's not like she said she can give me like an A if I just did it in, but no, it was like it raised not only like setting boundaries, but it raised resilience, and that resilience carried on to like, okay, so like I'm spending the summer at school with a broken hip, but I can manage, right? Because like
Yeah.
my parents raised a resilient kid, like or like, hey, like those were my fave, but I know I have that resilience because like this is like nothing compared to like what I experience and know what I can do. So like you can't like my grandma used to say, you can't hold them forever.
Absolutely.
And I know like with kids, like you really want to hold them forever. You want to like you don't want to see them get hurt or fail, but like not allowing your kids to grow
Yeah.
would like
Is
never will never help. Like going back to my college situation, like my first job out of college was with coaching and tutoring with my college coach at that college who lived in Austin.
yeah.
I made such a connection with like
Who? You
me.
there?
Yeah.
All right.
I made such a connection with like he said come coach with me. And so that was like
Who?
resilience. I found something good at it.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, I think you touched on something there that is one of my points. Um, you know, and it's kind of a mixture of what um, of two of your points actually. Um, don't strangle your kids, um, and I mean that both physically. Please don't strangle your children.
Homer
Um,
Simpson.
and but also don't strangle your kids with your expectations. Um, you know, now I may not have this experience, but I know that my wife does, where um, her parents held her to very high standards, and it kind of came to nip her in the butt, just because um, she always felt like she was never good enough. Um, so parents, please, 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 just be aware of the standards that you're keeping your youth to, because I know that you're looking at them going, I know that you can accomplish this, so accomplish it. Um, like, I think that this is something that my parents did really, really well, especially with me. So, my oldest brother, ended up having to go to military school. because he was failing out, getting into trouble in high school. My middle brother was captain of the football team, straight A student, dating the cheerleader. Um, you know,
You were a mixture of both?
I was the mixture of both. I got straight A's once in my entire life, but I got straight B's more often than I could count. Um, like I couldn't when it came to tests and things, it was crazy. I could get a B on a test no matter what, whether I studied for 2 weeks or I didn't study at all. I got a B. Um,
God given talent.
so of course, that forms bad study habits in me, but um, my parents saw that, okay, David's putting in the work, he's still getting B's, so we're not going to be sitting there pestering him about why he's not getting A's. Uh, you know, David, I was never the all-star athlete. Um, I was always kind of middle at the pack at most of the stuff that I did. And so my parents seeing this didn't go, well, your brother got straight A's, so why can't you? They didn't even look at it and say, David, you're so close to getting like straight A's because you're getting all these B's. Um, like we know you can do it, and it's very possible that I could have, but that just wasn't who I was. Um, so don't parents just please don't strangle your youth with their expectations. Um, and a part of that is don't force your expectations onto them, not only school wise, but socially. Um, you know, when it comes down to it, I whenever you brought up your first point of get interested in the things your kids are interested in, that was something my dad never did. And so he never understood a lot of the stuff that I loved, video games, comic books, um, that kind of thing. There was one time I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, what would you think if I became a pro um, esports player? Like if I went pro in video games? And he said, he didn't say these words exactly, but this is how it felt. I'd disown you. Like that was how it felt to me because I knew that he didn't understand my love of video games, why I loved video games, and I knew that he never tried to learn it. Um, so like for please parents get interested in the things your kids are interested in because then you'll begin to understand their social groups. You'll begin to understand the way that they act because a lot of times the things that we put into our body, that I'm not even just talking about food, I'm talking about media, music, movies, TV shows, social media, any of that stuff, that affects our personalities as well. The things that we put in often come out through our actions. Um, it's kind of falls along that same idea of the three people who you spend the most time with, they make up who you are. So parents get to know the things that your kids are interested in because then you'll be able to get to know their friends. Like even if you don't enjoy it, at least be able to have some kind of verbal conversation with it where um, you're not just completely shutting them down every time they talk about it. I would talk to my mom about video games. I know that it's way over her head, but she always was interested in hearing what I had to say. I'd tell her about my comic books that I'm reading because I knew that she would show interest, um, whereas I knew my dad never would. Um, so be sure you show that interest, and because it will help you to understand your youth more and understand the social experience that they're having and why they really are the way they are in a lot of ways. Um, and then this is one that I communicated through the blog. This is one that is really, I think, the whole driving point of why Jack and I do our podcasts, why we do any type of communication to parents um, about helping y'all out. And that is communicate.
Mhm.
Talk to your youth, whether they want it or not. At the dinner table, no form of technology. Force them to talk to you. Um, when they ask you about your day, when you ask about their day and they just say fine, don't let them just go upstairs. I know parents who basically said you're not allowed to leave until I'm satisfied about what I've heard about your day. Like you're not allowed to go upstairs until I've heard enough about your day that I feel like we had a good back and forth, or like that I learned enough about what you're learning, what you're going through. Um, which is like yes, that can be a very restricting rule, but it's an important one, and it's kind of goes with what Jack said. It's just one of those little things. It's one of the little things that you can do to help your youth know that you care about them, that you want to hear about their life, no matter whether you, no matter what it's about. You know, whenever they get home, ask them about sports. Did they have a good practice, a bad practice? About school. You know, how is run through the list? How's math going? How's English going? How's history going? Um, what did you learn today in history? Always ask them what they learned today in history because if they don't remember now, they won't remember on a test. Um, that's a that's a little key right there. If they say I don't know nothing, then you say, well, history is all about memorization. Man, you better hit the books. And they'll go, yeah, I'm gonna go do that right now. And go, no, why don't you bring it down here? I'd love to learn with you what it is you're learning. Um, a lot of times because even right now, you know, I'm working full time and trying to help Alexis take care of Genevieve. Like a lot of times, it feels like there's not enough time in the day um, to get to really spend time doing that kind of thing, but make it because it's the most important thing that you can do as parents. Um, because it like if parents show the initiative, I mean, we're the adults, parents, we're the adults. We're the ones who need to take the first step in building relationships or repairing relationships. And if you want to know how to fix a relationship that's broken, sit down and talk about the things that are wrong. Um, you know, I can I've encountered parents or I've encountered teens who don't want to get confirmed um, but they're doing it just because their parents want to. I encounter it all the time. Almost every year without fail, I've come across a teen who's going through that. Um, and it that can form resentment within a teen. So parents, talk to your teens about what they want in their lives, um, and don't say, "Well, no, you have to do this." Talk to them about it. Give them what you were maybe hoping for, maybe some of the ideas you had, but make sure you also emphasize that it is their life and that it is up to them. Um, I remember whenever I was picking my college, uh, my dad didn't agree with me going to Franciscan right away. He also didn't agree with the fact that I only applied to one college, but I was persistent as well, and it turned out to be the right place for me. So there are times that teens being persistent do work. Um, so, anyways, Jack, for our last question, well, actually, I feel like we already kind of answered that in that second question. Um, so I think that what Jack and I are really trying to say, and to sum it all up, is communicate with your youth. Would you agree with that?
Oh, wait, 100%. And like you're never going to be able to talk about the important, like the big stuff, like basically like why pornography is bad, why you should save yourself from marriage, why like, you shouldn't do drugs, like all this stuff like are a little bit painful to talk about for your kid to listen and you to talk about if you don't establish like some form of like communication. Like when I was struggling with my faith, like there's no way I could have gone to my mom in college and say like, "Hey, I'm struggling with faith,"
Hmm.
when like I couldn't even tell her about like the flower that definitely looked like the like the Eiffel Tower right there. And I
Yeah.
because she asked me because her big thing was walking like, "What do you see at your walk today?" And like she wouldn't hang up the phone until so I told her at least like a couple things that like I saw on my walk today or saw in my day today. And so like at least that like at very least we established communication and barriers were like lots and more. And it's like when she said like, "Oh, I know you're uncomfortable. What do you want to talk about?" Like I already felt that like, hey, like we since we're like, communicating, since we're making this step to like open these paths of communications, like and we're trying, like you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Because if you
Uh,
just dive right in and try to teach them like all these life lessons at once without establishing just like a goofy baseline like understanding, it's not gonna stick. It's like throwing a cooked noodle at the wall. It's
uh,
not gonna stick.
yeah. The so really, I think it really comes down to 2 points to really sum everything up. Between Jack and I, the two things are communicate, talk to them, sit down with your youth, and have conversations with them on a daily basis about their lives. Um, and if they ask you about your life, be open to doing so. Um, the second thing is really focus on the little things. Um, I think that too often, kind of what Jack and I have really been saying is Um, we have a tendency to focus on the big things going on around us. Um, you know, graduating college, graduating high school, getting married, you know, getting straight A's at the end of the semester, where we lose track of the little things in between. Um, so please our two pieces of advice about how to build a healthy relationship, how to rebuild a relationship that is maybe suffering right now, is to communicate and to focus on the little things to show that you love each other. Um, guys, our questions for you. Um, we've really got two questions for you, and this may be really great talking points with you and your youth. Is what is your relationship with your parents like? Um, what parents tell your youth about your relationship with your parents, about the good and the bad and the ugly. And the second question is, did you ever have a bad relationship with your parents? Do you have a bad relationship with your parents right now? And what can you do to fix it if it is in that bad space? Um, like sit down and have that conversation because it'll also help your teen to realize that you went through the same thing with your parents that they're going through with you. That teenage angst that so many teens get, that caused me to break my hand. It's something that so many teenagers experience. Uh, it doesn't matter whether you were a teenager today, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. Um, at any point in that, or and backwards for those of you who are older. Um, like you probably had some of that teenage angst towards your parents. So sit down, talk to your teens about those stories. You don't have to be talking about things that you know you shouldn't be, with your teens. There are boundaries there, and you should maintain those. You are still the parent, um, but it is good to let them know that you had some of the same struggles that they're having. So, guys, thank you for joining us this week on the St. Simon and Jude Youth Ministry podcast. My name's David Mims.
I'm Jack Wise.
Have a good one, y'all. Peace.